So if you were to get a time machine, go back 50 years, and you were to start asking American voters this question: if it was firmly established that a candidate for public office had doctored film footage of his opponent in order to distort that opponent's views, character, or values, would you be less inclined to vote for that voter? The overwhelming answer would be, hell yeah, but wouldn't he be arrested or something by then? You ask the same question today, and it would be something more like, yeah, well, that's all. They all do that. That's just part of the game. Like they were gangsters out of The Wire. And that is because of the events of the Watergate era. Now, back then, there had come a point where it was very clear not only that Nixon would be impeached, but he'd be found guilty. It was known to people that he had hired foreign nationals to break into the Democratic Party headquarters and steal information about the election, that he had used connections within the intelligence service, because these were Cubans, ex-Cubans, expatriated Cubans, anti-Castro, who worked with the CIA and who then were employed in this manner. And when that happened, that's what they know, that affected the thing. So everyone knew he was going to be found guilty of this. And Spiro Agnew had already been forced to resign. And that's important because he had been indicted for a crime. And that was why he was forced to resign. And it was the decision about that indictment that led to the Justice Department memo that said that while Agnew could be indicted, the sitting president couldn't. And that memo had never been, not passed by Congress, not reviewed by the courts. That memo has been what's kept Donald Trump out of court and possibly out of jail all these past 4 years. There's even a possible rape case that's been keeping him out of. And so Agnew was gone, and Nixon was going to be impeached and going to be found guilty. So they knew that, wow, that would go straight to the Speaker of the House. And so there's the thing is that people had sought the same kind of things you hear today, that, we've gone through, this has shocked America so much already, the impeachment and the conviction of an American president. To spare the people that pain, let's allow Nixon to pass the mantle, the vice president on, who would then be president, to someone who would be more reconciliatory, someone who's popular with both sides of the Senate, very much like Joe Biden today, and very much for the same reasons you're hearing of why we should move forward without holding people accountable. And so Ford did make this decision to, the Congress did make this decision to allow Ford to be president, even though, and it was commonly known, we were 14 at the time, and we knew this. We were following this. And yes, we were a little politically active, but keep in mind, we didn't know how to learn. We hadn't learned to read or write by the time we were 9. We'd only been reading for a few years. We knew about this crap. It was knowledge that was easily available. And, they could have, like, in the approval for the appointment of vice president, they could have, like, asked him, okay, are you making any agreements here about pardoning the president who's appointing you? Everyone knew that was in, but it's like, let's just let it happen. And so he goes in. But what Ford does is not pardon him for that specific crime that he was caught, but he pardoned him for anything done during the whole period he was president. And so when that happened, it was shocking, and slowly, over time, more and more and more came out, and more crimes, petty, serious, horrible crimes came out, and people knew Nixon was getting, the full 6-figure pension of a president. He was getting security for life, and he was getting additional money for a library to restore, redeem, and establish his legacy. And how do you wrap your head around that? And that's when you started to hear the cynicism of, well, they all do it, he just got caught. Because how can you wrap your head around the idea that Nixon had gotten away scotch-free with all this crap? And that's the thing, like, are we going to let that happen even worse with Trump? Are we going to let Trump pardon himself? Are we going to let him give that kind of universal pardon to his son-in-law, or his daughter, or his son? He's just given this pardon to this man, Flynn, who then within weeks started talking about declaring martial law and overthrowing our free and fair elections. What will be the applications? If Watergate has done all this stuff that made Trump possible and created this cynicism where we had this tremendously low bar of they all do it, it's all in the game, what's going to happen after this? And that's not even dealing with all the presidents and all the fascist possibilities Trump is leaving in his wake. And so we're calling for Biden, when he comes in, and preferably to announce it as soon as possible, he intends to do this, to revoke Flynn's pardon. Now people will say, oh, he can't do that, you can't do that. Well, you know what? The Constitution doesn't say one way or another. And there's already things, a pardon is delivered through executive order. Those have been revoked or altered by following presidents. In fact, Trump has done it to Obama in cases where, it had never been done before, like the protection granted to natural areas, resource areas that were declared protected as a national monument. He reneged that kind of stuff. And furthermore, one of the things the Constitution says, you have to, the Constitution says you count all persons in doing a census. And that was done knowing that didn't mean all citizens, but all persons. And people say, well, yeah, but illegals, that's different. Well, I'll tell you something. The slave trade, obviously slavery lasted in this country until the end of the Civil War. But importing slaves into this country was made illegal within 10 years of the Constitution being ratified. So you didn't have people, and the people who signed it were still alive then, most of them. So you didn't have people saying, you can't count a slave if they were smuggled into the country. that doesn't matter. And yet, Trump has attempted to do it, and it was brought to the Supreme Court, and they elected to not make the decision to say, well, that's not in there. That's strictly against what's in the Constitution. You know, there's other things Trump has done and Mitch McConnell has done. It's not, the thing is, if it's not allowed, or if you think it's not allowed, you need to challenge it in court. And then challenging that in court opens up all these issues, or the potential of opening up all these issues and weighing in. Everything, the DOJ memo, the unspecified broad pardon, all these things. And also, if they decide, well, you can't do that, they can weigh in of how you can do this and create more of a potential of correcting all these mistakes. Furthermore, by looking at and putting pressure on Biden to do this, if Trump goes the next steps and pardons himself or pardons Kushner for anything he may or may not have done, you're already putting it in there. People want something done and pushing that thing. So we need to do something to make this happen. And one thing you can do is consider the petition on the link below.